Hello everybody and welcome back inside the box for another episode of Gunpla Kitbash with me, Kukamatsu. In this episode, weathering. So, let's jump right in. Okay, I've disassembled the model in preparation for doing some weathering work. So what we're going to start with is XF69 and XF8. The reason I'm going in this direction is usually I would do this, it's kind of a grunge pass. It would be more of a greeny browny kind of color. But because our suit is pink, I don't think a greeny color is going to work very well. It's going to make it look really dull. So I'm going to try this XF69 NATO black and XF8 flat blue. I'm adding just a little bit of blue to the black. The idea is not to make it blue, but just to make it a slightly blue tinged black. And for this, I'm going to be using tap water as a thinner. So I have a few things at the ready here. I have just a big brush that I'm going to use to preload with water. Then I have a brush to spread the color on. I have some makeup sponges that you can get at anywhere beauty products are sold. You can buy those things. And then I also have a selection of Q-tips. The general idea here is I'm going to preload the area with a bit of water. Switch to my other brush and just give it a little bit of a coat and then rub it off. You have to work fairly quickly because it's acrylic. It's going to dry fast. People often do this with enamels, so you have a lot more control, a lot more time if you're doing it that way. This is kind of the quick and dirty way if you don't want to get into using oils or enamels. It just gives you kind of a slightly more worn look to it. You can go back in and add some darkness to areas that you want to accentuate a little bit more. This. The reason for putting the water on first is to allow the paint to kind of flow into all of the crevices. If you're just using straight paint, it just tends to be a little bit more intense and doesn't flow as well. You need to maybe find a balance of what you like in terms of how much it flows around stuff. It also thins it, so it makes it a less intense result. Okay, I think that arm is done. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, and there we go. Got a coat of that over the whole thing. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit and then I'll move on to the next step. The next step is going to be to add some paint damage, essentially. It's not necessarily going to be chipping. There'll be maybe a little bit of chipping that would go all the way down to the metal, but this is going to start off more with just the kind of chipping to the top layer of the paint, revealing some of the lower bits of the paint. For the pink parts, I'm going to use the mixture that I made for the original spray. Now that it's a little bit dirtier, a lot of times the original color works really well for this. If it doesn't show up well enough, then I'll add some white to it, but this is the light pink. I'm going to apply it using a little piece of open cell sponge. You can get this sponge from a lot of different kinds of packaging, and if you don't happen to get it that way, you can get it on Amazon as a fish tank filter. If you know of a better place to get this kind of a sponge, let us know down in the comments, because it'd be great to have a good source of that stuff. The fish tank filter is a great option, and it comes in different sizes, but if you have a better way, let us know. I'm just putting some paint on the sponge and then getting rid of the excess, not getting rid of all of it, just so there's not too much on there. Particularly corners like this, they're going to get dinged up pretty fast. little bit in the middle of the panel as well. And these things are quite often close to explosions and that sort of thing, so there are lots of little fragments hitting them. And then since the sponge can't get into every nook and cranny and it is not totally possible to control it completely, I like to go in after with a 000 brush and just unify some of the shapes and then get some chips in the areas that the sponge couldn't reach. Then very sparingly, I'm going to go in with the Gunmetal X10 and just nick some of these so that it's as if the paint went all the way through to the bare metal. Don't want to do too much of this all over because then it ends up being a very high contrast effect, but there are some little spots where it kind of makes sense it would get dinged to a point where the paint is all gone. You can see I'm painting where I painted the lighter color before and then leaving a little bit of that color there. It gives that really nice illusion of there being an edge to the paint. So I'll go around and do the exact same thing with all of the other colors, using the original version or a slightly lighter version of the colors we used initially. Well folks, I am happy with that. I would say the weathering is done. And that brings us to the end of the episode. In the next episode, we're going to do a short recap of the entire build and then the final reveal. So, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a like down below. Check out the playlist for previous videos. Subscribe if you want to follow along, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.